If you want something, go create it yourself. There isn't anything there saying, no, you can't do it, or, oh, this won't work, which I know that a lot of people struggle with. We are the only roadblock to whatever it is that we want to create in our lives.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step. Just let go. When I look for guests to come onto the show and share their wisdom, I look closely at their background, their track record, their experience, because we need people who have tried and true experiences and lessons, not individuals who maybe learned something on Tuesday and they're teaching it Wednesday. Allison Maslan is on the show today. She started her first company when she was 19. She's had 10 different companies over the course of her career so far. And she had this experience pretty early on in her 20s that rocked her world and shook some perspective into her. And as a result, she made some pretty big shifts in how she does business in a healthier way. She also, just on a side as you do, got her PhD in homeopathy. But she's a legit businesswoman. She also mentors CEOs. She has a business mentoring company. And Allison shares the literal, the logistical, kind of what happened for her to shift the way she does business so she no longer burns out, but she thrives and she is able to scale. She wrote a book called Scale or Fail recently, so make sure to check that out. And also, Allison is having an event in the San Diego area on January 18th through the 20th. I am speaking at her event. So if you're interested in checking it out and want to learn more, please go to AllisonMaslan.com. You'll find all the details. The event is called Level Up Live. And again, I'll be there. Allison has a wealth of knowledge to bring and share. And AllisonMaslan.com if you want to learn more. We tackle the most taboo topics on the Why Not Now show. Oftentimes, you're hearing guests share things they've never shared before. In the spirit of things we don't typically talk about, you should know that the Why Not Now show is supported by Poo-Pourri, the original before-you-go toilet spray. It's magic. My friends at Poo-Pourri have literally taken the smell out of you-know-what. This pure blend of essential oils stops bathroom odor before it begins. Visit poopourri.com and Why Not Now listeners get 20% off with code WHYNOTNOW. That's all one word. And you can hear the story about Poo-Pourri in our interview with founder Susie Batiste. That's Why Not Now episode 28. Poo-Pourri is also available at Target. Allison, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Amy Jo. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in the spirit of Why Not Now, let's start off as we usually do. And that would be, can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you asked yourself, why not now?
Yes, absolutely. It was the turning point of my life, my career. my situation and going from married to single mom. And that was about, 25, almost 30 years ago when I had built my first company and was making a lot of money. I had clients like Ben and Jerry's and Supercuts, and I was traveling all over. I had a full service marketing and public relations firm. And I, at the time, was great at building the business up, but I didn't understand how to delegate. I was kind of a control freak. I thought I had to do everything myself. I really didn't understand the underpinnings of building a business back then. And Amy, I was miserable. I had no life. I was working 24/7. I was pushed to the brink of my physical and emotional limits. And my daughter was under 2 then. And I ended up having a horrible car accident from the stress. And I remember being in the hospital and this question came to my head. And it was, do you want to be in the same place that you are now, a year from now, or even 10 years from now? And you and I both know how fast time goes. Well, that scared the heck out of me and lit such a raging fire under my feet that I said, absolutely no way. And I walked away from this very lucrative business, and I walked away from a difficult marriage. And I set out into the world as a single mom, no money, and happier than I had been in years.
Wow. And you were age 20, was that 25?
At that point, I was 30.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. So this is such an interesting dynamic because, well, first of all, we have a huge parallel in our stories, but that realization of, I know I had felt it being an emotionally and physically bankrupt millionaire was kind of just this, okay, so the money was there, but everything else was at such a deficit. And then this car accident happened. And was it literally kind of that moment that you realized, this is it. This is all going to change, that wake-up call?
It was. And it was a near fatal accident. I ended up running over myself with my car, which is like, I am a klutz, but that was really like far reaching. Just trying to stop a moving car. My car started rolling when I was jumped out of the car to get my daughter from daycare. And, never try to stop a rolling car. But really it was because I wasn't paying attention. Mm-hmm. I was all over the place. Mm-hmm. I wasn't in the moment. And I just thought, gosh, if this is success, I don't want it. But I loved business. I just knew that I wasn't approaching it right.
Yeah, if that's not the universe trying to tell you something, right? Like you literally almost run yourself over, and you were running yourself out off of fumes, really, it sounds like. So you've been so successful in business too, Allison, and have had, 9, 10 companies, and reading and learning about you in so many different diverse areas and verticals. So the common theme is you are a successful businesswoman. Like you figured this out. It's amazing that it took what it did, and you had so much momentum out of the gate. It sounds like from your first company, I think you started at 19, and then you had this ad agency. What are some of the biggest shifts that you made with your approach to business? Because clearly you didn't just walk away and say, I'm done with it. You've gone on to create more in bigger ways. So how did you learn, first of all, what to change? Like, how do you cut your teeth on that?
Well, first of all, that was a big wake-up call. And I decided, gosh, I've got to take care of me. Mm-hmm. And business owners, well, just, in general, we tend to put ourselves last, and we're always taking care of everybody else. So I decided to take a year. I mean, this was such a gift for myself. I took a year off to really figure out me and also examine the business. What was I doing right because there were a lot of things that I was doing right. And what was I doing wrong? And I began to study some of the clients that I was working with on the marketing space, like Ben & Jerry's, like Supercuts, and examining how they were scaling their companies. And how was it that the CEO, or the owner was able to travel and do all of these things that clearly I hadn't figured out. Mm-hmm. And so I developed a blueprint for growing a business, and I developed a blueprint for scaling a business, which means you really multiply your impact and your growth. And I have evolved those over the last 3 decades and, went on to build 9 more companies in a very different way that was aligned with me, my values, my lifestyle, and so that I could make a difference with my businesses, change people's lives, and then also have a life for myself and my family.
And just so we don't skip over it, because I thought this was fascinating. First of all, also, I'm a ASU grad and alumni, but so go Sun Devils.
Yay!
But yes, where you study journalism, right? And
yeah.
And then you went on to, is it correct to get your PhD in homeopath, to become a homeopath?
Yeah.
Or am I saying that right? You can tell how much I know. I'm just fascinated by these departures and awesome integrations into your path.
Yeah. So, I was, as you said, mentally and emotionally bankrupt when I left that business. So I went on a healing path to try to get myself more grounded, stronger. I had lost my confidence going through that, and plus going through a divorce at the same time. I was pretty shaken up. And so I had one day when I was going to the office, this is as I was really transitioning out, I said to this woman who bought radio at the time, she was a friend of mine, I said, do you ever have those days where you just feel like you're not going to make it? And she goes, oh, yes, I've got the guy for you. And I'm like, what? And so ended up that he and his wife were homeopathic physicians. And I'd grown up in middle America in Oklahoma. I didn't even know what holistic was. But you know what? I was like, what? I'm open. And so I was treated by them, and it changed my life. Homeopathy really brought me into balance. It helped me to get clarity on making decisions. I felt really like myself again, actually better than myself. And I was so fascinated by it all that I ended up going back to school and becoming a homeopath. And that business, I ran for 20 years. In fact, I just stopped practicing a few, maybe like 5 years back. But I absolutely am a huge believer in homeopathy. It's changed my life and just millions of people around the world.
That's so cool. And that all of these different paths that you've explored and taken. And I want to dive into some of your principles too, but just for the listeners, from the scuba diving certification program to a real estate investment company, a beauty salon, jewelry and accessory company, and your mentoring company now, you mentor CEOs. What would you say is that biggest lesson that you learned in being able to do all these different things from the pre-car accident to the post that allowed you to live a different life as an entrepreneur?
Well, I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family, and my father built the largest chain of women's clothing stores in the United States from 1955 with my grandfather had a store called Maslan's in Kansas City. And then my dad grew it to over 50 stores, several chains, but the main ones were called Stewart's. And he had such a passion for his business. And I used to just kind of hang on his coattails and go store to store, get ice cream, But he loved it. He loved every moment of it. I never heard him complain. And the message I got from him was, if you want something, go create it yourself. Go make it happen. So I saw that it was possible. And for me, the reason that I've had so many businesses is that I have a lot of different passions in my life. And so my mind is, well, why don't you open a business around that? There isn't anything there saying, no, you can't do it, or, oh, this won't work, which I know that a lot of people struggle with. And it truly is, we are the only roadblock to whatever it is that we want to create in our lives.
You mentioned delegating at the top of the show, and a lot of people listening, they are their brand. They are maybe in real estate, they're coaches, they have really built themselves as being the face of their brand. Any tips or guidance on when to start delegating or when to outsource? Is it more of a financial play? Is it an energetic decision? How do you mentor around that?
I think you need to start delegating from the get-go, because it's really about valuing your time. And as we grow older, our time becomes even more valuable. We really see that. I mean, money will come and go. Time does not. And so you have to look at the value of yourself. And we can delegate in our personal lives. If we can get someone to help us clean the house, then we can have more time with our children, or, writing that book, or whatever it is that you want to, accomplish in your life, or getting the gardener. I mean, yes, you might save a little bit of money by doing it yourself, but what can you do with your time if you're intentional? And in business, they say if you hire an assistant within the first 6 months of your business, then you will reach the 7 figures in half the time.
Wow. I haven't heard that before, but I can see where that's true, having had one and not had one. Wow. Okay. So that right there, look at the ROI on that investment. So is it trying to delegate and outsource anything you're not uniquely qualified to do? Or is it more of what you're not enjoying? Both?
I think it's both. And especially as you start growing your business, you're going to have a lot of things on your plate. But if I sit down with a business owner and, my team and I have 8 CEO mentors now. We work with business owners all over the world. And we'll go through their schedule for the week. And we really have them for 3-4 days, write down everything that you do. And you'll see how much time that you're wasting. And my guess is that we could probably take about 70% of the work off your plate, which sounds crazy, but unless it's the dentist or getting your hair done, it really doesn't have to be you. And I know that's hard for people to fathom, especially those that are consultants. But like in my business, I have a team now. Now I started with 1. And then, that's grown along the years. But I've done this with all my businesses, is where I teach them my processes. So they're amazing. And they have their wisdom combined with our signature processes and working with our clients. So therefore, I can take myself out of the daily equation, and I'm working on the business instead of in the business. And that was the shift that I learned, going through that crisis time in the past.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. If you are digging this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It just takes a moment and it means a ton to us. Also, after recording more than 100 episodes, I've created a bit of a cheat sheet on the top 5 things I've learned from renegades and how they get from idea to action, from dreaming to doing. I will email you the downloadable PDF when you subscribe to my newsletter. Just head to amyjomartin.com and click on Connect with Me. So working on the business versus in the business, in the weeds, in the day-to-day, that's huge. And I think sometimes people feel like they're so far in the weeds they can't even imagine. But that's where we need to be spending our time. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between growth and scaling?
Yes. So I see 5 phases that business owners go through when they are growing and scaling their company. So the growth phases are generally 1 and 2, where you're figuring out your target market. You're getting your revenue streams in order. You are putting marketing strategies in place. You're really defining your sales strategies, how you're going to convert sales. Prospects come in and how do you turn them into a sale? All of those things and then you're working on bringing clients in the door. In the beginning, it's just let's get some cash in and let's get our message, our work, our product out. Then there's a point where you hit a ceiling, and what you started with in your mindset, how you viewed your capacity for growth, how you viewed, what's possible, what's impossible. You start to see, wow, I have some potential here for something much bigger. And you have to change the way you market. You need to change your operational practices. You got to start building a team. And so when you scale, it's about taking yourself out of the equation and finding a way. And I share this in my new book, Scale or Fail. I actually give 17 scale strategies where you are taking your product or service and you duplicate it and then you replicate it so that you reach thousands or even millions of people with the same amount of effort that you were doing one-to-one. So it's going from one-to-one to one-to-many.
Just as a classic kind of example, what would be something that most people are familiar with as far as seeing that shift when the growth turned into scaling from one-to-one to one-to-many, or any specific examples?
Yeah, so there are several. So I've got an event coming up here that you're going to be speaking at. And one of our speakers is Ellen Latham, and she's the founder of Orange Theory. She started with one location, and now they have 1,000 locations. So they have franchised in under 8 years. So that's pretty big scale in a short period of time. That's an example. Take a system and an entity, and then just once you really dial it down and you've got all the kinks worked out, then you can franchise. You can take your process. So for instance, when I had my homeopathic practice, I also started a homeopathic college. And in 1999, called the Homeopathic Academy of Southern California. And it was a 3-year certification program. And I brought in all kinds of experts. I didn't, wasn't really me teaching. I did in the beginning, but then, I was able to step back. And then we were training all kinds of, people to practice homeopathy, in Southern California. So now we're able to take this one method and multiply it. And then the other beautiful thing about it is we help all these people start businesses, and we get to help a lot more people with homeopathy. If it was just me, I could only see so many people in a day. So that's another example of scaling.
I love it. What just came to mind too is Allie Webb with the dry bar. It's one of my favorite things, because talk about ROI of a blow dry. You can do work, you can relax, and you're getting a blow dry that might last for days and days. But what I noticed is I was in LA just a couple weeks ago, and I went to one, as I do. And then I was in New York the next week. And when you're getting your hair washed, you're looking up at the ceiling, and I noticed they have the exact same, even down to the ceiling panels. And every aspect of that system and setup is so systemized and structured and templated that I imagine the buying power and the economies of scale when it comes to materials and just the process and procedures is there's a handbook that, no, this is literally exactly how you do everything. And that's, look at the growth there. It's just incredible.
Yeah, I had her speak at a recent event, and here she was doing blow dries in women's homes for $25. That's how she started. And she thought, you know what, there's really a demand here. And she approached her brother, and then they ended up opening one store. And her husband actually did the graphics and the design, which is really beautiful. And then, they ended up, they grew several on their own, and then they brought in another CEO. Now they have over 100 locations. And so Allie's more the spokesperson of the brand. Even though she is a stylist, She is not in the salons doing the blow dries.
Right, right. Incredible. And like you said too, with your example, I really appreciate it because even if you are a coach or there's something that, you're a voice of authority on a specific topic that you're sharing, that train the trainer model and finding ways to productize your intellectual property is really interesting to look at because that is a way to start to scale your expertise. So, Allison, what's one lesson that you find yourself learning over and over?
I would say that if you have the persistence, and to me, persistence is like stubbornness all dressed up. So persistence means that you are going to go after something over and over and over again until you finally get it. It's kind of, I have an English bulldog, Daisy. Mm-hmm. She's my soul dog. And I'm telling you, when she gets her mind on something, she literally could stay after it for like 24 hours straight. And it is that kind of persistence. I mean, people wonder, will this work? It'll work if you stay with it. And it means you might have to tweak it. You might have to, change it up. You may need to find new connections, but there is always, always a yes. If you stay with it long enough, you're persistent enough, then whatever it is that you want to create in your life, it will happen.
I think that's where that stick to it, that determination. When we do fall short, sometimes it's right around the corner that the return is kind of waiting for us. I always think about that. Wow. So a couple of rapid fire questions for you. Your all-time favorite book?
Gosh, my all-time favorite book. I love The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Mm-hmm. That's one of my favorite. And every time I read it, I get re-inspired. And it's all about finding your zone of genius. Where do you shine in your life or your business? And really stepping into that. And I think most people are playing small, and definitely a lot of business owners that are playing small. They're playing safe because they're afraid. But you end up actually creating the opposite of what you want. You're trying to play it safe, but then you miss out on all these opportunities around you that are literally at your feet. And if you open your eyes and, of course, get the support, I'm a huge believer. We mentor business owners, and I have a mentor myself, because when you've got to make big decisions or, you're so mired in something, you don't see all the jewels around you, and you miss out on incredible, lucrative, and joy-filled adventures and opportunities.
Such a good recommendation. And it's such a fascinating concept to think about our zone of genius versus our zone of excellence, and how most people want us to stay in our zone of excellence because we're good at that thing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's our genius per se.
You have to get rid of what is good to make room for what is great.
Sometimes those are tough decisions and tough choices to
they
get
are.
That's good. Absolutely. And what keeps you up at night?
Oh my gosh, what keeps me up at night? You know what? I get excited at night. I am definitely a night owl, and it is genetic because my entire family, my mother, my daughter, my brother, sister, we could do a conference call at 2 a.m. and we'd all be wide awake. It's so strange. But I've learned to, I really work on trying to get to bed now, like 11 o'clock, because I get wired at night.
How funny.
And, so I would say what keeps me up at night is creativity. I get excited and I start thinking of these great ideas. Now I've learned I keep a pad of paper next to me. I don't want to do it on my cell phone, because then that'll really get me awake again. And sometimes I can't read what I wrote in the morning, but I do. I love business because to me, it is the most creative way to get your gifts out there. And it's an opportunity for me to make a difference in the world, one person at a time. And so I get these sparks of ideas and creativity at night. That's what keeps me up.
You're doing something right, for sure. That's a good thing to be keeping you up at night, the creativity and ideas and possibility. What advice would you give to your younger self?
The advice I'd give is to breathe and be in the moment. One of the things I've really had to learn, and business owners, entrepreneurs struggle with this like shiny object syndrome. I've got to do this and I've got to do this. And then you're all over the place and then everything's really diluted. What I've learned is just be where you are in the moment and do the best you can at that. Dive more deeply with that. You can do those other things, but you don't need to do them all right now.
Such good advice. So good. I look forward to joining you for your event coming up, and we'll make sure to give more details on that. It's been awesome to just learn from you and also learn more about you too. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and I love your show. So it's been fun. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?